Lake Ngami, one of the most important water bodies of the Kalahari, breathes. Over time, the lake is emptied or filled with the flow of water from the Okavango Delta. Around it reside local communities linked to the lake for whom it is the main source of livelihood. During the filling periods, fishing becomes an important activity that provides sustenance to the good part of the inhabitants of the area. In periods of low water, the fisheries almost disappear or are limited to small pockets of subsistence farming. Many areas become arable and allow small-scale farming. Life is sustained by water that in its cyclic flow gives way to human activities that are traditionally adapted to the phases of the lake. Also, cattle, wildlife and birds congregate on the lake where they have abundance of food and water. This dependence between the cycles of the lake and the activities of the surrounding human communities means that any change in the water patterns or the surrounding ecosystem affects the livelihoods of the inhabitants of the area. It is a vulnerable population with few alternatives apart from the traditional ones linked to the lake, and to which the changes of the ecosystem will put in a compromised situation.
Now, Lake Ngami is a large water body that supports both livestock and wildlife, but it's a lake that dries up and fills up in a 20-year cycle. But also what happens is that when the lake fills up, it means it takes up the grazing area, and there's deposition of very fertile nutrients which comes with the water. And so there's lots of growth. This is bush encroachment growth. And as the lake dries up, then this bush encroachment shoots up and takes up grazing area.
Bontsi jwa rona ka kwano re lebile thata mo lake. Kana lake ke so se tona. Bolele jwane is 30 kilometers. Me bophara jwane is 10 kilometers. Ko re khona go bona botona ja yone me e re tsentse go gare. Kana re metse e 6 mme rona re kota re go ga yone go gare. So re beile thata mo go yone rote.
Ne ke sa utlwa sepe maina ne hela batsadi ba me ba ne ba mpolella ka one gongwe ka nako yo gongwe ne ba le bone ba sena knowledge e kae ka lecha hela le kae ke ra gore e kae ba ka impolella tota ha ke ka maina ne ha ke itse sepe mme ke ntse ke godile hela ke itse gore ke lechala le ile gore tota le tshedisa balemi ba rui hela in general hela gore le metsi mo dinako tse dingwe a gongwe especially ba ka kwa halone ne ba ha go le thata ba sena metsi ha gongwe ne metsi a teng ba khona go a dirisa go nosa leruo jalo jalo.
The bush encroachment shoots up very, very fast. And this bush encroachment actually blocks movement of livestock, also blocks movement of people. The lake bed area is also used for agriculture, what's called flood recession farming. The bush encroachment is a problem in the sense that people are not able to do flood recession farming, and then the livestock is not able to get grazing. So the environment project was actually to get rid of the bush encroachment.
The absence of free water access in the surrounding area attracts more cattle to the lake than the ecosystem can sustain. It's not that there's no water to drink, but intensive grazing depletes the land and deteriorates the substrate, impoverishing the soil until it damages pastures irreversibly. By losing the original vegetative cover, the impoverished land is quickly invaded by Acacia tortilis, Acacia mellifera, and Acacia aeroloba, indigenous invasive species that are able to survive harsh conditions much better than other local species, starting a process called bush encroachment. When the water goes down, the land that emerges is quickly invaded by these shrubs, whose roots deepen to the water table in search of water, also depleting this resource, and replaces the original vegetation, thus preventing the normal development of economic activities around the lake, and preventing the grass from growing again. The eroded soils lose its nutrients and are invaded by bush encroachment species, making the land less and less suitable for livestock or farming activities. Bush encroachment species are also thorny plants between which moving becomes difficult, sometimes preventing access to certain areas.
Because of the free water in the lake, many farmers bring their cattle here, and that results in basically overgrazing. And when you have overgrazing, then you easily have soil erosion and loss of nutrients, and then bush encroachments can come in.
Our community members, as I've said, were relying on agriculture and so on. So we need to change their mindset. Hey, we have to put more education. We have to educate them more to know about the importance of this charcoal. As I have said, that here 90% of us rely on lake as a source of water for our livestock. So because now the lake is drying, the question is, how are we going to live now? Now we've moved from that traditional one. That's why now we have this project of charcoal. It shows that we have shifted, which emphasizes more on empowering the local communities. We don't want to cry anymore. Now we are making charcoal from the trees that are killed by the lake when it flooded.
In an area with few employment opportunities, the loss of land due to bush encroachment reduces the livelihood options available to the local population. Seasonal activities of low waters are hampered by the abundance of aggressive shrubs that, when they extend in great density, can impede access to some of the areas of the lake. It is important to find economic alternatives that allow the subsistence of the local population of the area, at the same time help to control the proliferation of these plants and be environmentally sustainable. One of the most effective ways to control the expansion of invasive species is to convert them into economic resources to be exploited, or generate economic activities that require their eradication so that their removal can become a source of livelihood and create employment. In 2013, the Lake Ngami Conservation Trust was created in order to control illegal fishing while developing economic alternatives. The Ministry of Environment, along with the UNDP and the Lake Ngami Conservation Trust, in a joint effort to promote the SDGs, have launched a project to produce charcoal in the lake area by adding value to the natural resources of the surrounding areas of the lake.
So we've worked with the Department of Forestry in the Ministry of Environment to work with them to see how we can take down the Acacia species and turn it into a resource. And that has been done through the making of charcoal. And now we've been able to set up with local trusts the whole charcoal businesses. And at the moment there's over 10 or 11 people employed, and the charcoal is being created and the demand is quite substantial. In fact, the supply at the moment is not enough for the demand that's in the area. So we're quite excited because having the opportunity of working with the Ministry of Environment to agree how the spacing of what we take down and what we will leave, and then turning that into the economic opportunity.
So what we did, the project linked up with the community trust, Lake Ngami Conservation Trust, which is a trust that includes 6 villages surrounding the lake. So we brought the whole knowledge. This charcoal is made using kilns. These are the cooking pots. And so this company that we partnered with, they brought metal workers to come and teach local metal workers how to make the kilns. they brought the people who actually make the charcoal itself. And the project provided other equipment for the charcoal production, including axes and saws and the wood cutting, the heavy-duty wood cutting machine, so that the project can actually start.
Training ka bokhutswane ne re rutuntshwa ke ba lephata la UNDP ba re tsene workshop e itse re biki ha ke gakologelwa re le ko mology ya Lake Lodge go mo Sithwamo mi training ya tetota ne re rutwa ke borre ba bane ba kile ba dira charcoal bill bangwe ba bone ba bane ba le mo project ya charcoal bill rena bo mmere se re joine ke bona ba ne ba re rutuntsha mi bile mo thutuntsho yone ne rena le di trust tse dingwe from other villages sengwe se nka se bua gore ile tsela ngwe ya go benchmarka gore le bone ba te ba nne le that skill sa gore ba itse gore charcoal e dirwa ya gore later ha ba ka bona madi le bone ba te ba engage mo go dire project ya charcoal mme ke tsa gore le ha re sena go digela biki gone hale ne re hilwe di sort of certificate of services sa super certificate of participation sa super ne re workshop ya te.
How we work that side, charcoal, agri charcoal is labor intensive, so it needs teamwork. It either being by cutting down the tree or cutting down that tree, or it's either being cutting down the tree you see in an X, or cutting down that wood using a disc machine, or just loading those pieces into the car to the ports. It's need to, or whatever we do in that side, we do it all together. Yeah. Charcoal training is less talking and more practical.
In the same areas where the opportunistic shrubs proliferate. This is ideal wood for the production of charcoal through its slow combustion in kilns, metal furnaces similar to drums. After studying and learning from similar experiences in Namibia, the development of this economic activity was promoted, training people from the lake to make the charcoal. The very development of this activity requires the creation of clearings for the installation of burners among the dead acacias by plucking the encroachment bushes, promoting their eradication thanks to the economic possibilities that would offer this transformation, as they can also be used to produce coal or livestock fodder.
So the project also supported the trust with the packaging material professionally made, so that the product can go straight into the market once it is produced. Now, the charcoal that was produced was tested to see its calorific value, and it was found to be very high value, to have very high calorific value in the region of about 32 to 35,000 kilojoules, which is a high value, calorific value, comparable to other species like mopane. So it's a very good quality charcoal that can actually also serve the export market.
There's so much acacia here. It's the only one that is bothering us. The big trees, they call it Mitsiara. I don't know the scientific name, but it's the one that we, through the help of UNDP, they gave us the chainsaw to help cut, and we fence, we paddock with those poles. They help us to, they take us to Sehitwa, where we learn about charcoal production. So that we cut those trees, we make charcoal, we sell to other markets, or we can make bread out of it. And like I showed you earlier, I use it for my artificial insemination thing to cool down the tank for the semen and nitrogen. When I was in that course for charcoal production, I realized that we can make money out of charcoal production because there's too much bush encroachment in our farm. So I talked to some of my friends because we have a truck that we can do it here in the farm, and then we just load so many bags of charcoal and take it to Sihita, where they are the main supplier. Maybe we're supplying that area and Sihita, then they package, then they sell. Yeah, the cooling, I realized that like I'm involved in artificial insemination thing, that the can, it has to be cooled around. Like I showed you earlier, we put water in the morning, afternoon, and in the evening.
Jaaka maabane di setse le utile ka monna yo le mosupima ko tiro ko re gona le ditsatsi le le gore re rema dithari re di diga ka selepe ka gore ne le setse le utile a thalosa ka gore di change so actually tse re ne re di donate ke UNDP tse dingwe ga di bereke go re itsatsela nthara diga le bone ga gongwe ga re bona gore ke dithari tseo ka re rona ga re di kgone yana re tsa mo ba go digile. After that, the following day,
the creation of economic opportunities in an area so dependent on its environment is vital to avoid resorting to illegal activities that damage the environment and preserves the lake's biosphere as much as possible. Charcoal production not only generates economic benefits for the community, but also environmental benefits. It reduces bush encroachment, allowing the return of the grassland, and with it, wildlife, and better possibilities for raising livestock. It also results in greater groundwater availability when restoring plant consumption patterns. The reduction of unproductive forest mass also prevents proliferation of uncontrolled fires, which is important in dry areas.
I've seen how the original species and grass has come back just in one rainy season. So it's very impactful in a very, very short time. What we're now wanting to do is advocate that this is replicated around the country. And we are supporting the project again in Kalahari and Hansi in the human-wildlife conflict. The idea is to transfer the technology thinking and start the same kind of businesses in this area.
So basically the outcomes for the Ngamiland sustainable land management was one, improved range management in 1 million hectares of land within Ngamiland. For example, ensuring that livestock is managed in such a way that the grazing of livestock is controlled and managed. Secondly, managing bush encroachment, ensuring that you start a process of managing bush encroachment is also a measure of improved range management. Thirdly, control of wild bushfires, being able to have a program that actually manages the control of bushfires.
In the old days, as we have said, people were burning trees in order to fight bush encroachment. But the government seen it as it was not good. Because when you burn, when you apply fire, you burn everything. You won't burn only the tree. Agree? You are going to burn everything. Even the soil. You're going to burn the soil.
The production of charcoal based on invasive plant species can spread to other areas of the country where there's an invasion of alien species affecting indigenous habitats. Such as in the area of Khanti, southern Kalahari, Borovast, with the problem of invasion by an alien invasive species, Prosopis juliflora. Prosopis is a native plant of Latin America, which was initially introduced strategically in order to stabilize the Kalahari sand dunes. It also spread from neighboring countries where it had been introduced before. Soon it grew out of control and ended up affecting the living conditions of communities in the area. As with the acacias, it is a very resistant plant that adapts quickly to extreme conditions. Its roots also deepen a lot and release organic compounds that repel other plants around it. As such, Prosopis exploits the native species and imposes itself as the dominant species, seriously affecting the biodiversity of the area and breaking the balance of the ecosystems linked to the original vegetation. It is also important to explore alternatives that convert these species into explorable resources, allowing their control and the reduction of the invasion. One of the possibilities is to turn it into charcoal using the same techniques that have already been developed, tested and proven in the area of Lake Ngami.
Boravast, they have a range, they've been allocated a range at which they will actually be keeping, they actually keep small stock, and they want to be able to utilize Prosopis to make fodder and also make charcoal from it.
The reason why we come together actually was to conserve. First of all, we wanted to conserve the natural resources, we wanted to change the life of our communities and look at the gap between the government and our community. This Prosopis was brought in under the Ministry of Agriculture by then, because in our area there was no trees. So they brought in, they tried this, and they thought that it will work. And now it has become a problem. It has invaded all the Boravas catchment area. There is no, where it grows, there is no species that grows there. It is now an invasive species it's also a dangerous species. It's good, it's very good for the animals, but it's also very dangerous to us, the community.
I think we've reached a point where we realize that we cannot completely eradicate it, and so what we can do is just to control its expansion. Yeah, and that is why the proposal to actually have incentives that ensure that its physical removal translates into livelihoods, for example, and turning it into charcoal or into other products that can be sold.
What we were trying now as a project, we want to make a fodder. We want to make fodder, because what we have realized, if we look at the goats the animals that are roaming within the street, they are better compared to the animals out in the grazing area. What we are planning, we have called in people from Botswana University of Agriculture and Natural Resources to come and teach us. So what we were planning, we want to use the pods of this tree, we want to use the branches, and then we want to use this one, the camel tree.
Generating economic activities that facilitate the recovery of the ecological balance is vital to allow the self-sufficiency of the population that depends on the ecosystem of Lake Ngami. The ecosystem around the lake is full of natural resources that provide employment and a livelihood to the current and future generation. The environment must be protected. It is the most precious thing that these rural communities have as their source of employment and food. It is necessary to adapt to the changing rhythm of the dry, filled lake with ingenuity and adapting to the new ecosystems that are being formed. Turn this threat into an opportunity, looking for ways to neutralize the problem and let it become a solution. Sustainability is the way to make the project and the future of the communities that live in the lake viable.
The idea is to replicate that even on a larger scale. And earlier we talked about looking at Botswana's renewable energy targets. Here is a nuisance that can be turned into a renewable energy type. We talked about the biogas, we talked about solar energy and so on. Here is an opportunity to turn it into a renewable energy type. And we're excited because now in Kalahari and Hansi, we want to expand that and again help to contribute for Botswana meeting its targets on renewable energy.
There's lots of opportunities out in the rural areas for businesses, for activities that actually youth can empower themselves with. The tendency with youth is to focus all their attention in urban areas where there's internet and 4G and stuff, but this example of the charcoal production is an enterprise that youth can go into. The market is very large and there's space for everybody to actually do it, and there are different aspects of the chain in which they can actually fit in.
I promise them that we are going to sustain this project so that the future generation going to benefit from it. So that's our main idea. Sustainability, that's what we are going to do.